So as we reach the end of this first week, there is clearly a market shift from ambition to implementation. That's the strengths, in our view, of COP30 in this mutirão environment. And we are using the action agenda with governments, businesses, local and regional, indigenous groups, and civil society convening power to drive real-world solutions for a more resilient, low-carbon economy. As you probably know by now, we have 114 plans to accelerate solutions which have been already developed and have been made public for the first time at COP30 through the activation groups that were formed back in July, and they are all available at the UNFCCC website. And they are all built around the 6 axes that come straight from the global stocktake and at our route to achieve the objectives of the Paris Agreement. And they do detail how businesses, investors, and communities are effectively working together to turn ambition into implementation by pulling the levers of supply, demand, finance, and policy. This week, partners have announced a set of immediate actions to accelerate the implementation of those plans. I would like to share some of those highlights which are very significant, and they are helping to bring life to the Baku-Belém roadmap as well. Starting with today's announcement, as we focus on 2 big issues, the money subject overall and the methane as well. There is the launch of the roadmap for advancing interoperability and comparability of sustainable finance taxonomies, or simply saying the Taxonomy Roadmap Initiative, in collaboration with SBCOP and the International Development and Finance Club. This is a unified effort between governments, private sector, and finance sector to align taxonomies is critical to move towards the Baku to Belém roadmap. And at this initiative, we have the alignment of over 60 national taxonomies that will help countries attract capital and reduce transaction costs, especially critical because less than 1/3 of developing countries currently have taxonomies in place. Earlier this week, we had the first ever Asset Owners Summit led by our President André Corrêa do Lago as part of the official COP agenda. 30 leading global asset owners representing $10 trillion in assets were here in Belém, and they did propose to establish this Owners Summit as a standing COP event, and they sent the signal of their commitment to scale partnership with the public sector again towards the 1.3 trillion objective of the Baku to Belém roadmap, and resources very much needed to meet the new collective quantifiable goal. Today, we also seek to advance action on drivers of climate change that extend beyond carbon dioxide. Pollutants such as black carbon and methane create a perfect storm for people and economies, driving lethal near-term warning, worsening air pollution, and damaging crops. Cutting this pollution is one of the fastest ways to simultaneously protect climate stability, public health, and food supplies. The Super Pollutant Country Action Accelerator launches today an initiative formed to help 30 developing countries cut dangerous pollutant gases by 2030. The accelerator launches with $25 million for 7 pioneer countries, including Indonesia, Nigeria, and Mexico, which will scale to $150 million in its first phase. Each country will receive around $4 to $5 million in funding for over 3 years, with progress tied to clear national milestones. Also relevant to mention that earlier this week, we saw a number of actions that accelerate implementation of the global stocktake. alongside with governments, non-state actors, businesses, cities, regions, civil society, and indigenous people. To highlight a few again, in transitioning energy, industry, and transport, leading utilities in the Utilities for Net Zero Alliance committed $150 billion per year to invest in renewables, grids, and storage, totaling almost $1 trillion pipeline of projects until 2030. MDBs, financial institutions, and private sector actors endorse key principles to unlock an even bigger pipeline through climate finance, with real facilities being launched to start delivering now. 23 countries joined companies to launch the Belém Commitment to Sustainable Fuels, or Belém ×4, pledging to quadruple production and use of sustainable fuels by 2035 for hard-to-abate sectors such as aviation, shipping, steel, and cement. And especially on adaptation and resilience, there is a commitment since the beginning of the presidency of COP30 to raise adaptation at least to the same level as mitigation. So very important activity there as well. The collective adaptation efforts by cities, regions, civil society, and businesses are beginning to improve lives and protect livelihoods. Tracking published by the Race to Resilience campaign this week found nearly 438 million people, about 1 in every 18 people, have become more resilient to climate shocks due to these efforts that I mentioned before. But of course, we have to go much further and much faster. The first major finance initiative on adaptation of COP30 came up this week as well, fostering investable national planning and implementation, so-called FINI, for adaptation and resilience, aimed to turn national adaptation plans from policy documents into investable plans with a goal to develop adaptation project pipelines for $1 trillion by 2028. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well on this Saturday before the rest day. It is a pleasure, and I think Dan has already spoken to a lot. What I want to do is maybe just recap a little bit on what we have been doing this week on the action agenda and what was the aim of the action agenda for this COP. Ambassador André has been telling us that we have 3 objectives in this COP: to protect multilateralism, to accelerate implementation, and to connect climate to people's real lives. And so the action agenda that has been proposed is really aiming to support those objectives, and in particular to bring the actors that do not sit on the negotiating tables, but that are crucial to implement, into supporting the implementation of the global stocktake. And this is a process, as Dan described, that we have been doing since the middle of the year. And throughout these days of COP, we are seeing the physical manifestation of this. So if you have not yet, I invite you to go to the thematic rooms that we have at the beginning of the venue. You will see 6 thematic rooms for each of the axes of the action agenda: energy, industry, transport, forests, oceans, and biodiversity, agriculture and food systems, cities, infrastructure, water, human and social development, which includes health, includes social protection, and the cross-cutting axis on finance, technology, and capacity building. This is a translation of the global stocktake into the real world. And what we are seeing in those rooms is they're very lively, they're very exciting, talking about the discussions on how do we accelerate implementation on that. So we are bringing together all of the initiatives that have been created in the past COPs, and bringing them to help us accelerate. And what we are trying to do day by day, and what you have seen here with Anatoni, Ambassador André, and the guests that we have brought to the space, is day by day, through the thematic days, go through some of the ways in which we are advancing all of that. In the first week of COP, as Dan has just described, we have had, yesterday in particular, many announcements and advancements around energy, industry and transport. So especially we have seen advancements on energy efficiency, on sustainable fuels, on transitioning away from fossil fuels, on industry and grids. And to give you color and example, there were many initiatives launched in the past on industry. The ITA, the Breakthrough Agenda, Lead It. Some of them are focusing on countries, some of them are focusing on the private sector. What they're doing to accelerate is bringing them together around common plans to accelerate solutions so that each of them can bring the levers that they're able to bring to the table. So these levers are how do we increase supply or how do we increase demand, which for some of these sectors is key to be able to invest more. Some of these levers are around the regulation that needs to be in place in order for us to accelerate. We have also seen this week Access 4 on cities, infrastructure and water. Cities coming together at COP28. We have seen the launch of the CHAMP coalition on multi-level governance. And this week we have seen a further step to that, moving into the implementation phase now that 78 countries have multi-level governance in their NDCs. How are we moving this to implementation next? This is the plan that they have put on the table with new governance for that process. We have also seen on health, the Belém Health Action Plan, which is bringing adaptation into the health space with funds from philanthropies, $300 million to support the implementation of that plan. So it's not only a piece of paper, it's something that is going to be implemented. And finally, I think in the beginning of the week we saw a bit on technology, and today we're seeing finance. A lot connecting to how we implement the Baku to Belém roadmap on country platforms, on taxonomy, on the things that are really going to help us take that off paper. So through the action agenda, we are bringing all of the stakeholders as key actors to implement the global stocktake, and we hope that this will then support what is coming out of the negotiations.
Thank you very much, Dan and Bruna. So, I think...
Thank you, Ambassador. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Bruna, for those remarks. Now we open up for questions from the media. If you're interested we'll take 2 questions at a time. We can start here in the front.
Thank you, Seth Borenstein, Associated Press. Ambassador Delago, I know early before COP30 started, you talked about not having a cover decision. But given the 4 issues that are still tabled and maybe decided today, are you looking at a cover decision here? And are you seeing more coming out of this COP than just being, the focus on implementation? In other words, is there going to be more ambition, whether it's the 1.5 or transition away from fossil fuels than you originally planned?
As a reminder, we will also have a press conference at 7 where we'll focus more on the negotiations. And for our second question, we can take a question for our colleague over there in the 5th row, I believe.
Boa tarde, Bárbara Carvalho, da Globo News. Vou falar em português. Se o Dan pudesse responder também em português, seria ótimo para a gente. Está conseguindo? Não? Ah. Presidente, é porque eu estou falando em português. Se o Dan pudesse responder em português, sobre essas questões que mais avançaram, eu acabei perdendo alguns números. Você disse... a questão de quadruplicar o uso de energia renovável até 2035, falou também de...
Eu não estou ouvindo, eu não consigo ouvir.
Falou também de...
Você poderia só repetir? Eu acho que está difícil de ouvir, nosso áudio não está muito bom aqui.
Eu estava perguntando sobre os pontos principais que ele citou como avanços da aceleração das implementações em português. Se pudesse repetir para a gente... Ele citou quadruplicar o uso de energia renovável até 2035, queria conferir se era isso. Citou uma ajuda de 4 a 5 milhões de dólares para países até 2030 para ajudar a cortar emissões, se eu não entendi errado. E queria entender também a questão da resiliência. Ele citou um número de uma em cada 8 pessoas se tornariam mais resilientes resilientes às mudanças climáticas. Então, se a gente puder ter isso em português, ajudaria. Obrigada.
Obrigado. Talvez começando do final, talvez eu perca a ordem aqui, mas a questão mencionada é com relação a uma iniciativa existente chamada Race to Resilience, em que se fez a publicação dos resultados atingidos até esse momento. E esses programas que são impulsionados por cidades, regiões e várias organizações da sociedade civil e empresas também, eles conseguiram demonstrar a melhoria nas condições de resiliência para 437,7, eu falei 438 milhões de pessoas ao redor do planeta, que é um número importante, mas também deixando aqui o caveat de que isso é 1 a cada 18 pessoas no planeta, então temos muito mais que fazer. Com relação a alguns países que eu comentei, é um acelerador para a questão de superpoluentes, chamado Super Pollutant Country Action Accelerator, e esse fala em 25 milhões de dólares para 7 países iniciais, que incluem Indonésia, Nigéria e México, e eu fico te devendo os outros, e isso se busca escalar numa primeira fase até 150 milhões de dólares, o que poderia gerar 4 a 5 milhões de dólares nos próximos 3 anos para cada um dos países. Sobre a parte de utilities, a aliança Net Zero das Utilities, o NESA, que se comprometeu a investir 150 bilhões de dólares em energias renováveis, grids e storage, armazenagem, e com um pipeline, um caminho de projetos conhecidos de 1 trilhão de dólares até 2030, e o Belém 4 vezes, que é a ideia de multiplicar, o compromisso de multiplicar os sustainable fuels, os combustíveis sustentáveis, 4 vezes até 2035, que é muito importante para os setores de difícil redução, em especial aviação, marítimo, aço e cimento.
To answer your question, yes, for a long time I've been saying that we are not planning a cover decision, but I also said that if there is a movement from the countries to propose a cover decision, the presidency will obviously take it into consideration, like most ideas that may come from a significant number of countries. So let's see how things evolve, but it's not a plan of the presidency, definitely not. Yeah, I would like to stress something about what Bruno and Dan were saying, is the support that we're having from the Brazilian economic sectors regarding this effort. More than a year ago, I asked a series of sectors to bring what was their vision of how we were going to transition by sector, transportation, agriculture, mining, construction, and I was so impressed by the commitment and by the reports that I received, and I received much more reports even than I expected, with one amazing one from the Amazon. All the universities in the Amazon, together with the technological centers of the Amazon, suggested solutions in the 6 axes of the action agenda and on the 30 themes that we are dealing. So this has worked in an amazing way, and a special comment has to come from the Confederation of National Industry, the CNI, which created the SB-COP that now has more than 45 countries, no?
46, I believe.
Yeah. So, which is incredible because, as you know, industries in many developing countries were reluctant regarding this agenda a few years ago, thinking it was a new obstacle for the development of industry in developing countries. And I was so glad to see the Confederation of National Industry of Brazil take the lead and create this group and organize proposals in all these countries, which represents literally millions of businesses. So
40 million. 40 million.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I think that there is a movement from in developing countries of absolute, of growing conviction that this agenda is good for developing countries and is opening very important opportunities for developing countries. And I think this is one of the wonderful findings that we're doing now in this exercise, is how developing countries have seen that they can embrace this agenda, and that this agenda represents really the economy of the future in which they want to fit in.
Thank you. We can take 2 more questions. You can go over here in the front to the gentleman in the first row here.
Boa tarde, Leandro Gouveia, da Rádio CBN. Eu não entendi de onde veio o compromisso de multiplicar os combustíveis sustentáveis em 4 vezes, se é uma proposta que vai ser levada aos países para que eles aceitem esse compromisso. E todas essas cifras que a gente vem falando, dá para incluir no 1,3 trilhão? Porque eu vejo o senhor, presidente, falando que o financiamento deve vir de outras formas e não só pública, né? Também de entidades civis, empresários e tal. Pode incluir nesse 1,3 trilhão? E aí, em que cifra que a gente estaria agora, incluindo tudo que a gente já tem?
Sorry, mas não. Desculpa. Mais uma pergunta?
Essa proposta começa na cúpula. Na cúpula que o presidente Lula organizou 6 e 7, veio essa proposta de multiplicar por 4 os sustainable fuels, vem de um relatório da Agência Internacional de Energia. E como vocês sabem, a Agência Internacional de Energia é a maior agência de energia do mundo, mas a qual, inclusive, o Brasil ainda não pertence. O Brasil, até esse ano, solicitou para entrar portanto, é um estudo de uma agência que originalmente era só para países membros da OCDE, mas agora vai estar recebendo a Índia, está recebendo o Brasil. Então, é uma agência que se expandiu muito com o diretor executivo Fatih Birol, que é uma personalidade fantástica. Então, veio justamente a partir dos especialistas. Foi um estudo, não é uma coisa assim voluntarista. O estudo da Agência Nacional de Energia mostrando isso, na cúpula foi apresentado aos países essa declaração de quem quer se juntar a isso, porque você sabe que Sustainable Fuels inclui desde biocombustíveis a como é que chama? Hidrogênio, né? Sustentável. Então, foi uma iniciativa que vem crescendo, né? Primeiro de um relatório, depois da cúpula e agora na agenda de ação. Hein?
E 23 países subscreveram aqui em Belém, na sequência que o embaixador colocou. E só um comentário da tua pergunta, os valores que eu comentei aqui não estão no Road Baku to Belém. Os 2 temas que eu comentei aqui alinhados ao Road Baku to Belém, que é, eu não dei números efetivamente, que é a reunião dos asset owners, em que eles falam eles gerenciam 10 trilhões de dólares, e óbvio que eles vão suportar o caminho Baku to Belém, mas não se tratou de um número específico. E a iniciativa da taxonomia, do roadmap da taxonomia, Eu entendo que ela será fundamental para a gente atingir o objetivo, mas aqui também a gente não trouxe um número específico. Os outros números que eu falei não incluem na somatória do roadmap.
We can go over there.
Can I speak in Portuguese or English? Okay. Janaína Figueiredo, senior reporter no Global. Sorry to go back to the negotiations. Louder? Okay. Okay. Sorry to go back to negotiations, but I would like to know what's your expectation about the 4 items that are not yet in the formal agenda. I know the negotiations have been intense and there are some difficulties, including African countries, Arabic countries. So what's your expectation? Do you think they are going to be included? Do you think Brazil presidency is going to find a way to include these 4 items? Ambassador, thank you.
And we can take one more question. Can you go over here to the front? Yeah, to her. Yes, please.
Thank you. Bruna, Jornal do Comércio de Porto Alegre. It's another theme about the security. We can see that the security is reinforced today compared to other days. I want to know if we will continue and if protests in front of Blue Zone will no longer be allowed.
One of the things I learned in this briefings is that I'm getting deaf, because I can't understand what people say. So I unfortunately didn't understand the question. Primeiro, first, Janaína. I think that, first of all, the 4 items were incorporated in these consultations. And the consultations are happening now, and this afternoon, in our briefing, we should have already some evolution of this. So we will announce in the afternoon, okay? And regarding security, now I think that there is an understanding. You know that when a conference like this happens in a country, there is an agreement between the country and the UN, and each one has a function, and you adjust according to the circumstances. So I think that there were some adjustments, but I believe that everything is going smoothly and in a very satisfactory way. So.
And we can go to 2 last questions. Let's go over here in the front.
Agora, eu não entendo do lado esquerdo, do lado direito eu entendo.
Olá, vocês escutam? Escuta, embaixador. Também não está tão bom o som para a gente, tá? Mas, enfim. Boa tarde, Dan, Bruna. A minha pergunta é para o embaixador, mas vocês podem completar. Sou Lia Riso, da Exame, tenho acompanhado todos os briefings e vocês vêm falando muito sobre a participação, né, dos negociadores, obviamente, hoje um pouco mais do setor privado, mas ontem a gente ouviu no pavilhão científico uma demanda dos cientistas de que os negociadores venham até eles estão se sentindo, de certa forma, um pouco excluídos. Obviamente que a gente sabe que as decisões se pautam pelo que a ciência traz para vocês, mas existe uma expectativa de maior proximidade, que eles estejam mais perto da negociação, até para que vocês escutem mais o que há de mais recente. Eu queria ouvir vocês sobre isso.
Anyone else? Can go over there. In the back.
Falar em português, programa Eu, Nós e o Nosso Meio Ambiente. Hoje eu estive na marcha global do clima pela Cúpula dos Povos E é uma demanda constante, né, dos grupos participantes, são mais de 1.100 organizações, movimentos, com relação à pauta, né, da COP30. Então, eu gostaria de saber que, como amanhã vai ser o término da cúpula, e eles vão também fazer um documento, se esse documento vai ser um balizador também dentro das negociações oficiais, né, da COP30. E o senhor ficou também, que eu saiba, né, de receber esse documento oficialmente amanhã também. Obrigada.
Sim, em princípio, sim, eu vou amanhã receber, de manhã, o documento. Esses documentos têm uma influência significativa nas negociações. Eu acho que é muito importante a sociedade civil preparar esses documentos e fornecer esses documentos para os negociadores, da mesma maneira que os cientistas. Tem uma coisa, até hoje teve uma apresentação do presidente do IPCC, né, sobre essa questão, que é o problema do IPCC ter os seus relatórios numa distância, ele não é no mesmo ritmo que os documentos necessários de serem apresentados pelos países. Então, eu particularmente tenho até um conselho científico, né, da presidência, que é presidido pela Thelma Krug, que tal, tem brasileiros estrangeiros, tal o Nobre, tal Hoxton, mas eu não sei se eles se referem a outras delegações, mas o fato é que pela primeira vez nós criamos um pavilhão de ciência. Pelo que eu entendi, eles acham que os negociadores não estão indo muito, é isso? É isso.
Houve ontem, no fim do dia, embaixador, uma apresentação que foi liderada pelo Carlos Nobre e o Johan Rockstrom, em que eles comentaram isso. Eles disseram claramente, negociadores, venham até nós. E ao longo do dia tinham apresentações, presenças esperadas, acho que por força das manifestações que atrasaram um pouco, talvez vocês tenham que ter desmarcado a própria CEO da COP, mas foi um apelo bem direto nesse sentido. E eles comentaram sobre o documento que eles também entregaram, acho que há 2 dias para vocês.
Tá, obrigado. Eu acho que eu acho que é muito significativo que a gente está com uma COP com tantos países presentes, né? Numa COP em que a principal economia do mundo se retirou, né, da conferência. Então, eu acho que isso já demonstra que as pessoas estão ouvindo os cientistas, mas certamente a gente tem que ouvir mais, e eu vou ver, de certa forma, até se eu posso fazer algum tipo de coisa para estimular isso, porque realmente ter aqui o pavilhão de cientistas é justamente para se aproximar dos delegados e, de certa forma, compensar que não há um relatório do IPCC recente que seja a referência, né? Obrigado.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry, Dan.
Não, só comentar aqui do lado dos pavilhões da agenda de ação, é uma parte significativa, porque a gente está trabalhando com tecnologia, com soluções, e elas têm sim um envolvimento bastante significativo, e aqui o agradecimento a todos que estão participando.
Aliás, falando talking about pavilions, I don't know how many of you have been to the Embrapa pavilion. Embrapa is the Brazilian entity that has more than 2,000 PhDs working on tropical agriculture. And it's 5 minutes from here, and it's really fascinating. And one of the surprising things that I heard there is that there is a part of a forest that was deforested 100 years ago or whatever, but they've been allowing this area of their farm. It's here in the middle of the city. And in that area, the forest is growing naturally. And they are studying for the last 80 years the growth of this forest, how it grows naturally. But that small part of the Embrapa Center, in the center of Belém, they have more types of trees than all of the UK.
And Ambassador, next week we have a Forest Day on the action agenda, so please stay tuned.
Forests on Monday, and then on Tuesday we will have oceans, and we will talk about synergies between the conventions. And then on Wednesday we will have Agriculture Day with agriculture ministers talking about recovery of degraded lands and a few different solutions for the food systems and agriculture section, including a lot on adaptation as well.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Bruna. That concludes our press conference. Thanks, everyone, for joining. Thank you.
See you later. Thank you.
Obrigado. Thank you.